My name is Dan Bigley. I'm co-author of a book Beyond the Bear, How I Learned to Live and Love Again After Being Blinded by a Bear. We were just heading back to the trailhead when my dog Maya lets out a little growl. And sure enough, about 30 feet away was a large grizzly sow. We'd had many days in the backcountry, many days fishing out on the rivers, and so therefore in Alaska, that means that you're going to have lots of bear encounters. But what was unusual is that this bear was clearly very agitated. Maya leaps off the trail, my friend John leaps off the trail, and so now it's just me and the bear. What we wouldn't realize or put together until later is that in the shaking bushes were her cubs. And so without even realizing that she had cubs, we had put ourselves in a very bad situation. I'm the last thing between bear and cubs at this point. And as she grew nearer, her head grows bigger, eyes burning yellow with fury. And this would be the image that would burn itself in my mind as one of the last things I would ever see, was the bear that would ultimately take my eyes. I hear my friend John calling from a distance. So I called back because I obviously wanted them to know where I was. And in hindsight, I think that might have been a mistake, because I think to the bear, that was too much sign of life. And that's when she delivered what I now refer to as the death blow, where she essentially turned her head sideways and bit down across my face. And it would be a long road, obviously. The medevac report said as I arrived at the emergency room that patient presented in a way that was incompatible with life. Basically, every single bone in my head, minus my lower mandible here, had been broken, if not pulverized to powder. All of the facial anatomy here, was pretty badly crushed, and including the palate that holds the brain up into place. And so the brain had actually herniated down into my sinus cavity and was pretty much exposed to the outer world. The theme that then would resound throughout the recovery process and throughout the story is about the power of human relationships and how our strength really isn't in any one person or part of the story, but rather our strength is in our ability to be interdependent. I think that real first turning point came when this man walks into my hospital room, and he had spent every year since 1959 living as the only man who had never been completely blinded by a bear and lived to tell about it. He basically came to say, Dan, I just want you to know that there's still a lot of life worth living. He really got my attention when he said that he still owned a fishing boat. I started to think, okay, maybe I could do this whole blind thing. And the most important thing he did was he gave my family and I the most valuable resource we could have asked for in that moment, and that was the resource of hope. Hope that I could do well as a blind person. From there, really, it was taking these little risks. Each little step was a little risk, and with some of those risks were little successes. The first time I tried to find the bathroom by myself. First time I tried to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I've come to learn that all great successes or great achievements are, or at least most of them, are just one little success at a time, and just building on those until you can look back and say, wow, look at how far I've come. Comes a point, really, in every trauma survivor's life, I think, where you really have to push off from the island of safety that has been recovery, that has been rehabilitation, and re-enter the main current where there's expectations and there's less support, and you have to figure out how to make a living. I had enjoyed the work that I'd done before the bear, working with kids and families, and I wanted to bring that work into an office setting where I could do it as a blind person. So I knew I needed to go back and get a master's degree to do that. So I applied for the Master's in Social Work program at UAA, and 3 years later graduated with a 4.0 and a Master's in Social Work, and did achieve the dream of becoming a clinical therapist. And so to me, it's almost been a gift in that sense, because making a difference is always something that I've wanted to do. And now I've really found a way to do that. I liken it to the alchemist who turns lead into gold. I certainly wouldn't be here if it weren't for that network of support, whether it's the medical professionals, the rescuers, the rehabilitation specialists, or just the friends and the families and the coworkers and the peers in college, and all of that. It really created this vibrant community that I had that really gave me the environmental resources I needed to thrive. The other thing that I'd say is that the whole way through, starting when I was still in the hospital, going through a lot of physical pain, and emotional pain. That there was this one place in my body that I could focus all my attention. That helped me get through a lot of those tough times. At first, I thought that the bear had given me a new way to see. But what I've really learned in the time since then is that it actually wasn't the bear, but rather it was this community of people. It was the friends and the families and professionals and all this who really took me by the hand and showed me the way back to living. The other thing I've learned is that the more I've engaged in life, whether it's through engaging in pursuit of happiness through music or through yoga or through friendships or walks on the beach or whatever it is, career goals, or even just simple things like playing hide and go seek with my kids. The more I engage, the bigger my life gets. And that the bigger my life gets, the smaller my disability gets.